Yeah.
YouTube or here. Perfect. All right. Well, welcome back to Tuxes and Tomahawks. I am Adam Dorito, episode number 41, with Jaime Gallardo, who is a MARSOC EOD tech, and he now actually gives a shit about troops getting out and worrying about their finances. And if anyone who's been in the military knows that it's not a good idea to buy a Camaro at 20% interest, it's probably Jaime. Jaime,
Mhm.
welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me. Stoked to be here. Stoked to be here.
Dude, so tell me about your career, your life. What inspired you to join the military? You have a fascinating story because you're from Colombia, right?
I am. I am. So, born in Colombia, raised in Ecuador, Miami, and I've never said it this way, but I could tell that when I first joined the military, I was a bitch. I couldn't figure out my way around the military, fixing trucks, and slowly but surely, I found myself. And I saw some EOD techs in the Philippines, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. To connect it back to my background, my cousin got killed in a car bomb. My uncle used to have had their house bombed, and my uncle was captured by the FARC. He was
Jesus.
basically a POW for a year. Yeah.
So you're just living the cocaine 80s life down in Colombia there, huh?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all the Magnum PI. Did you just drive around in Corvettes and cigarette speedboats and shit with really short shorts and mustaches? Is that how it goes down
I
there?
wish. I wish. I think if my family has connections to cocaine, they've done a great job to hide it. And they found legitimate ways to make money. But yeah, I was living in Ecuador when all this happened. But whenever I saw these EOD texts and I started connecting things to my family, and I was like, man, like my cousin got killed in a car bomb. Now I'm like want to disarm car bombs, and it's pretty cool. So I think that it was very interesting coming from and I'll say this for anybody in this podcast, take for what it is. I come from a long line of liberals, South American liberals, which I think liberals in other countries have very different views than our view of liberal Republican.
Oh yeah.
Right. But when I told my mom, I'm joining the military. She's like, don't do it. It's bad. But she was thinking of our militaries.
Right.
Right. But then I joined, and my mom is like, it turned out to be awesome. Right. I'm super stoked to be here. My mom's super proud of my service. But yeah, it's connecting a few things. I realized that it was like, this is really cool. And I'm going to tie one more thing. When I went to SEER school, I called my uncle and I was like, guess what I just did? I did what you did for training. I'm not nearly as hard as you are. And I only did it for 2 weeks. And you did
I
it for
just
a
went to,
year.
yeah, I just went to torture myself
Yeah.
in Series C. It's a good time. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've met a lot of foreign guys who join the U.S. military, and it's always an inspiring thing listening to guys coming from other countries who want to join the U.S. military and going through
Yeah.
that entire process. So, for those guys who listen to my show, what was that process like for you, becoming an American, serving and wearing a uniform? How did you join to go into MARSOC, or did you join regular Marine Corps and then transition to MARSOC? How did that operation go for you?
Dude, I had no idea what I was signing up for. I
That sounds
signed
about
up.
right.
Yeah, no clue, right? I have no idea of the military. I had been in the JROTC program.
Mhm.
It was the army, but I was still figuring it out. And I'm convinced that my recruiter just caught me just right. I was thinking of joining the Air Guard. And I
Yeah.
go to Ecuador on vacation, come back, and the recruiter's like, do you want to join the Marine Corps? And I was like, what's the Marine Corps?
What's the
you
Marine
know?
Corps?
Yeah. And signed me up. They did the questions, and I ended up being a motor T mechanic fixing trucks. So I had no idea. I show
Yeah.
up to school, and I remember calling my recruiter, and I was like, dude, you screwed me. He's like, what do you mean I screwed you? I gave you what you wanted. I was like, this sucks. You should have made me an infantryman.
Yeah, fixing trucks sucks.
It's absolutely terrible. But I think that it all worked out in the long run. He didn't really screw me over. He just gave me what I wanted, and I didn't know what I really wanted.
Yeah.
So it was quick about figuring my life out, right? And coming I was raised in Miami, mostly Hispanics, coming to, going to Japan with a bunch of redneck dudes fixing trucks. It was a very different, but
Yeah,
I
I'd
started
say
to
so.
find myself, and see what I wanted. And when I was in the Philippines, I saw some EOD techs, and I was like, these dudes are so cool. I want to do that.
So what EOD techs did you meet? Army EOD, Marine EOD?
They were Marine EOD techs with a Mew.
Okay.
And they were actually the dudes supporting Force Recon.
Okay.
So, I mean, not that means a whole lot, but they were super. I remember what it was is that they had cool guns, they were really smart, and they were blowing stuff up. And I was like,
what more could a young guy want? You know what I mean?
that's it.
I was
I
want to
was
blow
like,
stuff
this
up.
is it. This is what I want to do. I remember a funny story. We were in the Philippines and we had to get evacuated because of typhoon. And I was watching the armory that night. And I remember walking in and I was like, I'm going to go see their guns. And I grabbed it and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. It was a average M4 with an EOTech. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So
That's
but
like
yeah,
actually an EOTech for the Marine Corps, man. It's like, once you start going to different parts of the Marines, they actually have money,
yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which is
And
like
this was
unheard
back
of.
and this was in 2006. So
Oh,
I was
wow.
like,
Yeah.
whoa, this is so cool. Yeah.
So were you an East Coast Marine or West Coast Marine when you went through basic?
I'm an East Coast Marine.
Oh, that's the right coast. Everyone
Yeah,
has to know that. It's all about the East Coast. Fuck the West Coast.
yeah.
I always like to give shit to Marines. I spent a little bit of time in the Marine Corps, so I was over on the Quantico side and
Oh,
whatever
cool.
else. Yeah.
Cool.
Long story behind that, but that doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Anyway, so all of a sudden you decide I want to be on the coolest side of the Marine Corps, and relatively MARSOC is very new compared to all special operations in the military in general. So you were kind of at the forefront of MARSOC integration into the whole enabling ecosystem. What was that like for you going from a vehicle mechanic and then trying to go into MARSOC and trying out for the Raiders?
So it was incredible, right? So I'll give a quick backstory of what inspired me to go there. So I did a combat deployment as an EOD tech, and one of my teammates had been with a trailer platoons, and this dude was like, I mean, if you meet him, he's a teddy bear, but he is a war hero and he was awesome. And I was like, dude, this guy's really cool. I come back and they send an email looking for staff sergeants. So I went to MARSOC in 2012. So MARSOC had been around for 6 years, so still pretty young. And they send the email, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I literally send an email right back. It's like, I'll try out. I don't know what I'm doing. And like, dude, I couldn't even lift heavy weights because I didn't know anything. My buddy that was in MARSOC, even to this day, he taught me how to clean and press. And but then I started working out, and I was like, dude, I think I can do this. I showed up to the soft one and I did very well. I showed up super physically prepared. And that's when I realized I'm a really, really good rucker. And it was incredible. Obviously, I had my first, new guy dramas. I'm pretty high energy, which is not, I'm very positive, very high energy, very excited, which in those environments, it clashes.
It does.
But
it does.
Yeah. But it worked out. I had a really good time. I think that the biggest thing that as a MARSOC EOD tech at 6 years in, we were still saying basically like hold the line, right? We're good, we're respected, they want us here, keep doing that, right? So I just kept up with it, and I think I had a really good run, and it was awesome because we oftentimes were one of the more senior guys in the team.
Yep.
So again, I'm not going to say that we don't have any CSO duties, and this is my take. Right. We're like, I always see us as plug fillers. I always picture like a ship sinking and the water sink coming in and we just start plugging holes. It's like, what do you need done? Oh, you need that done? I'll do that. Oh, you need that done? I can do that. So it was really cool to develop into somebody that was useful in a team that had a unique skill, but they can be counted on to do just about anything, And
yeah, no, for sure.
That's pretty much been our legacy. Like there's been guys that have been team chiefs. There's been guys that have been this with the snipers, the ton of things. And that's kind of the EOD text is like, we do this, but what else you need done? We can probably do it.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a unique capability that you don't see a lot, even on the SF side. Like basically the 18 Charlies are the demo guys, and they kind of stick to that, that lane. Can they integrate as part of an ODA? Can they go around and kick in doors if they have to do kinetic stuff? Yeah, for sure. But I definitely think it's unique that you're seeing like an EOD tech attached to, a MARSOC team in a Raider group, and then you're actually filling in the other slots. Because like I said, you're not always defusing bombs and stuff, right? So yeah, that's super cool that you have that type of enabling capability. So what was your experience like in MARSOC? Like, tell me about your deployments, tell me about your experience on that front end. Where were you assigned?
Yeah. So my first deployment in MARSOC was this super tough deployment in Kajaki because we had a pool and there was nothing to do because it was at the end. We did close to nothing. We ended up leaving early. So, it was a quiet deployment, right? And I remember having a conversation with a buddy of mine that ended up going to DevGru, and it was just like, it sucks that we missed out on doing the MARSOC war fighting.
Right.
But like everything that is war fighting is like, it's really cool until somebody doesn't have legs attached.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
So
really
it's
cool
like,
until bad things happen.
right. So we took it for what it was. I left with high spirits. And just by circumstance, I went to that deployment without a workup. They were just like, you're
Just
going.
walked right in there.
Yeah, because we had a guy get fired. So they were like, you're going. And I was like, going where? What do I do? I've been here for 2 weeks. It wasn't 2 weeks. It was 6 months. But I went to deployment. It was awesome. I came back from that deployment. I did like the PME. And then my boss calls me. He's like, can you deploy again? And I'm like, yeah. Where are we going? It was like the Pacific. So I met my team. So my first team, I met him in Afghanistan. Second team, I met him at the evaluation exercise and went right to the Pacific, which, you know, the Green Berets are used to, the ODAs are used to, the J sets. MARSOC still didn't like him, hadn't figured themselves out.
Right.
But man, I went to the Maldives. I went to Malaysia. I was in Guam. We had, in my opinion, a phenomenal J set, right? Being in the Maldives was incredible. I couldn't have like I think that trip would have probably costed me $50,000.
Yeah, you're just doing Jason Bourne shit. So like, were you out there with first group? Is that who you were assigned to out there?
No. We went, MARSOC was on their own. We were also doing the Pacific. So we went with our fraction of our team to the Maldives. We're actually supposed to be there with SEALs. But the SEALs went home early, which is whatever. We got to enjoy the beaches. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's also an understatement because I'm assigned to Indo-PACOM too. Like I work civil affairs, and that's kind of my area of responsibility now. And it's definitely a completely unique area compared to CENTCOM, which is where I was on my combat deployment, right? Like it's a completely different environment, different people, and whether it's vegetation or just the people, how they act, the threat actors out there, it's a completely different environment. And it's really tough because you're dealing with like a lot of Chinese influence out there, and you're dealing with a lot more Russian integration, right? Which is the complete opposite of everything we've been used to for the last 20 years, right?
Yeah. And we were still just training those partner countries.
Yep.
But you know, as we grow, we mature, the joke that I say to people is that all these JSITs are irrelevant until Ukraine happens. For the last 20 years, right? For the last 20 years, the 10th group guys are like, oh, I'm just going to Ukraine. I'm going to have fun in Kiev. And then wham, validated overnight. So that's the way that I take it. All our trips, you know, that we party a lot, that we travel a lot, sure. But at some point in life, our trips are going to get validated, and it'll be fine, right? So I try to, but it's hard to convey that to a really young guy. You know, it takes a lot of maturity to say, bro, it's just not your time. This is okay. And then after the Pacific, I was supposed to deploy again, and the regimental commander cut 2 EOD techs out of that company for whatever reason. He cut, and ended up being me and my buddy. And I was kind of like, what do I do now? And I heard of a team was going to Mexico. So I swindled my way into going to Mexico on a CNT for 2 months, training the Mexican Marines, which was incredible time. And then from that, it's not a deployment, but I got to do the EOD course with Australian Special Operations Engineer Regiment, which at that
those
point,
guys are fun. The Aussies are a whole different brand of people.
Right. And at that point, and maybe still, I think I'm the only American to ever go there to do the course. And dude, it was amazing just being in Sydney, and they're in Holsworthy, and do their training, and they're phenomenal. So it was a great experience. So overall, like for non-combat MARSOC experience, just by virtue of life, I had an incredible time. I made the best of it, and it set me up for success for everything else that I've done.
No, and I think you put a really good point there. And I know we talked about this offline before we signed on, but like really motivating the young guys too. This is a different type of war we're going to be fighting. You know, we're moving into near peer adversary, you know, conventional operations, getting back to basics, you know, understanding the fundamentals, and then also integrating with partner countries and then doing joint training. That is so important. And a lot of guys are like, oh man, we got to go do this JSET, or we got to go do this integration training, or we have to go do this NATO stuff. And it's like, but this is actually really important to learn how each individual element and each person, what point of value they're going to add to the team and add to the mission. And then all of a sudden, like, you don't know when it's all going to come to a point when we're going to be needed, right? And I also really appreciate your point on having a positive attitude to this, because you're right. Sometimes it sucks. Sometimes you're out there doing absolutely nothing and you're bored out of your mind. But taking advantage of every single point of training in order to make the max of your career is such an important aspect of having a positive attitude throughout your military career.
100%. And it's hard to convey, right?
It is.
And it's sometimes we have to realize it in maturity. Hopefully we realize it in the moment. But, you know, there's like, it happened to a good friend of mine. He showed up to MARSOC a year after me and did a ton of combat deployments.
Yep.
Because he went to the East Coast. What am I going to do? Like, I didn't pick that. I didn't avoid them, right? I sought them out just as much as the other guy, but it just didn't happen. So no fuzz, right? And if we take that mindset of like, okay, you can control what you can control. You can't control your deployments, then great. You know, find something good to do. And man, I had a really good time.
Yeah, and some guys get stuck with chasing the dragon, right? They keep transferring units or moving to different areas and trying to attach onto something, and you're just going to drive yourself crazy doing that versus really relying on gaining that experience, getting that team fluidity, you know, and gaining that trust and teamwork building and stuff. And, you know, like I said, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but don't think any less of yourself if it doesn't happen for you. It's not a big deal. Just make sure you're always taking care of your guys and you're always doing the right thing. I think that's definitely a good mindset to have.
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
So talk to me about like everything post MARSOC. So you're just about to get ready to leave, and then you start changing your mindset on what you want to do with your civilian life. And I think this is a really important conversation to have, because most guys, especially guys like you who are operators with, like, you know, the Raider Battalion, like, what the hell do I do now? I'm getting out. I'm a badass. I do all this cool stuff. EOD tech. What kind of value can I add to my life after this? Because like I said, unfortunately, it's going to come for everybody. There's going to be a point in time for all of us where we hang up the uniform and we're done, you know? So how did you change your mindset to having a positive attitude going into the civilian world?
So, which for that matter, I'm still in. I think that I'm in the SOCOM fellowship right now.
Right.
For me, it was, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna have to stop for a second while we chat here, because somebody's gonna call me out. I just realized my flag is on backwards. So check this out, guys. This is what happens. If you're not perfect, you take a second and you fix it.
It's all right. We're going to let him fix his flag.
I have the flag. I just realized it was on backwards. It fell off last night. So now I think it's right now. So cool. Now we are. No, it was right. Okay, cool. Look at that, guys. You see, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to see how you guys see it. All right. Now we can get back to it. It was right. Dude, that's so important, right? Dude,
it is important.
I don't know why. It was freaking me out. I was like, did I hang it right this time? Because it just fell off, so I had to fix it. So going back to this, the important stuff.
Yeah, so talk about the SOCOM Fellowship. How did you get involved in that as an E8 and MARSOC?
So SOCOM Fellowship is equivalent a skill bridge, but you can apply for it the same way, but just with SOCOM. As long as you've been in a SOCOM unit, as far as I understand. Okay? Once you're there, it's just a 6-month fellowship with a company that is already approved by SOCOM, right? So pretty much I'm going to say anybody that's in SOCOM, look into it, do your 6 months, find a company you can grow. I will be putting my company on there, and I will also be going into SkillBridge to give service members an opportunity to get into the world of finance. So my transition into the world of finance in the civilian sector, it was all largely due to my second divorce. Dude, I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, you know what? I need to do something good with my life. I started the Financial Enabler, and it blew up. From that, I started meeting some very wealthy people, and I got involved in the world of finance. So I already had the mission that I wanted to see service members be wealthy, right? This is really important to me, right? And because I could talk about hours about how service members talk about money, think about money, act about money, and I want to change all that.
And service members do not think about money in the right way. They're out doing hookers and blow and buying Camaros at 20% interest, and that is not the right mindset.
That is not the right mindset, right? And so for me, when I started this fellowship, I reached out to a friend that I knew was signed up with them. They approved it, and now I get to do this full time. So what I do, I'm basically meet one-on-one with people, and if I'm too busy, I send them to a friend that can handle it, and we, so to speak, coach them through the process, right? And whatever people need, we can address it. Estate planning. Do you want to understand how you should invest in the market? Do you think you have your 401k sucks? Do you think that your life insurance is set up right? Whatever, right? We can set it up correctly. That way people understand. Because what I do, and this is very easy, is like, not only do I show people how to do it right, if they have something wrong, I can show them what's wrong with it.
No, and those are such important skills to have, because I don't think a lot of service members understand any of those things. You know, they might they go into this blended retirement system at a minimum, and then they're doing, you know, their TSP. But other than that, they're not thinking about money. They're not thinking post service. They think this stuff's going to last forever. And I think this is such a critical, important thing, especially for like millennials and especially younger generations. I lived through the financial crisis in 2008. I saw my boomer parents elect a bunch of politicians that completely destroyed our financial system. And you can't be relying on Social Security or all these other broken government programs. You have to rely on yourself and taking responsibility of your finances.
Right. And you know, I'm gonna call out, if you feel called out about this, then suck it up. Maybe not you, but the audience, right?
Please lay it out.
That I hate when service members say, oh, it's because the military has bad systems. Oh, it's because they don't provide any education. Oh, it's because TRS sucks. And I'm like, sure. But then in that case, how did you get into bodybuilding?
Right.
You just looked it up. You figured it out. So, how did you pick up a hobby? And all of a sudden you're really good at archery because you cared. It's because you cared. So the problem is that it is much easier to take a victim approach and say, oh, the military didn't give me X. Instead of saying, great. And this is what my retort to them is, brother, the military is here to win wars. They're not here to make you financially sound.
Absolutely not.
That is your problem.
Exactly.
Right? And as a matter of fact, they ignore the fact that, bro, our system, the military, is excellent when it comes to this. Our TSP is probably the best one I've ever seen. There isn't a 401k that is as streamlined as that, right? We have a pretty solid group life insurance. We have incredible medical benefits, right? When you compare them to the masses, right? Obviously, there's better healthcare programs, but it's pretty good. And we get tax-free housing. There's countless benefits. But if you take the victim approach, then you're going to find like, oh, we don't get paid enough. Well, do an actual calculation of your cost of living and the benefits where they add up, and you get paid pretty well. But it's just take the victim approach, right? So if we take that ownership, we can actually use a lot of these things to jumpstart our careers and jumpstart our life, you know?
No, I understand that. So how do you start having that conversation with people? Like, how do you start making people care? How do you start making people understand that their financial well-being is completely up to them? And then what tools, you as a financial enabler now, what tools do you help provide them to help them understand those processes?
So the first thing, man, is mindset, right? But to get into the conversation, that's why I use Instagram. If I put out just massive amounts of, well, not massive, I put a lot of information on Instagram, and I just started a school. Have you ever heard of SKOOL?
No, I haven't.
I just created a school that I'm going to start putting courses. So I just put out information out there so that people can feel, okay, this is valid. And then they can create questions. So once I'm talking to somebody, the single most important thing is, what do you want out of life? Because a lot of people say, oh, I want to be comfortable. I was like, no, you don't. If not, you wouldn't have joined the military. Oh, I want to be stable. No, you don't. Because if you're stable, at any moment you could die, right? So what do you really want? So I ask them to extract what they really want out of life, right? For their kids, for their family. And then once we know that, now we can go get it. The analogy that I give to a lot of people is, a ship without direction has no favorable wind.
It's a good analogy.
Right? And people are like, I want to retire and live an excellent life.
What does that mean to you? Yeah, what does that mean to you?
That doesn't mean anything to you until you actually put it. And then the cheesy part is, have you ever seen the motivational speakers on YouTube?
Oh, yeah. Plenty of them.
Right. My question now to people is, are those people lying to us, or you just don't believe it?
Right.
And then as I started peeling the onion on all these people, and I have some books right next to me that corroborate this, is that they're not lying to us. We just feel that we are too good and we don't receive it, which then at that point, we're putting a block from all the knowledge that is actually being put out, right? And I'm not saying all the motivational speakers. I'm sure there's guys that suck, right? But a lot of those information, it all starts, and I like throwing out this book every time, is this book, Think and Grow Rich, which was actually done as a research project on Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, all these guys. So if we start taking this and we apply, like, where do I want to go? Cool. I want my kids to go to college. What college? What do you want them to study? What do you want them to do? Well, I want my wife to not work. Cool. How much does that cost you? Can you actually afford it? So we start peeling the onion, and I was like, okay, this is what you really want. Now let's go get it. Right?
It's defining those goals and then coming up with a map, like your land nav, right? Coming up with a map, plotting your points and getting there. And getting to those points isn't always going to be easy. It's not always going to be a straight line. But coming up with a strategy is super important. I think that's where a lot of service members get lost, is like, what is my strategy to get there? It's like, oh, I want a house. I want to have kids. I want to do this. I want to retire. Okay, well, that sounds great, but you still have to come up with a strategy to forge that path.
Yeah. And to what you just said, a quote I just saw last night that happens to be from a mentor's mentor is that he said that I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. I'm telling you it's going to be worth it.
Exactly. Yep.
And I can corroborate about 90% of the world of finance to the military. And it's like, people want to be wealthy, but they don't want to put the work. That is the same thing as saying, I want to be a Green Beret and never training.
Yeah, that's what SFAB does.
Right. It's what FFAB
that's what the Brown Berets do. Like, I'm SF. I just don't go through selection.
Exactly. Right. So it's like,
sorry, SFAB.
Got him. If you want to do something, just do it. It's that easy. But people rather take a victim approach, put the responsibility on somebody else other than self, instead of just owning up, So I really put a lot of stock in that and how you think about money, not only the making money.
No, I agree. So what do you think is like the top things that people think wrongly about money? Like, what do you think is like the biggest roadblocks that people face when it comes to thinking about money off the end?
Wealthy people are bad. There's not enough money in this world. And I wish I had a better start.
So, yeah, especially as a guy coming from Colombia, like, talk about that mindset transition coming in as an American MARSOC and then doing this and trying to teach that and overriding this American mindset. And like I said, I encourage a lot of people to join the military, even if it's a 2-year contract, just because going to see the world and understanding how everything operates outside of the United States is so important to having gratitude for where you come from. But I think we take it for granted about being an American, and understand that we have so much opportunity here and we just don't enable ourselves to take advantage of those opportunities.
100%. I always say to my meetings, there's no such thing as a Colombian dream. There's no French dream. There's no British dream. There's an American dream.
That's a great point.
It's only an American dream. And are people achieving the American dream? Yes. People are actually achieving the American dream at a faster rate nowadays than they have in the past. But if we say the wealthier bad people, there's not enough money. Oh, I wish my family was wealthy. I didn't have a good start. Then of course you're never going to make it. But if you start looking at a lot of the wealthy people, there's so many of them that came from nothing. I know, one of the guys that I know, he makes $2 million a year. He's an Iranian immigrant that's for a while, he was taking showers in Taco Bell. Like, how do you go from that to a multimillionaire, a U.S. citizen? Like, he figured it out.
Yeah.
And it's possible for anybody. But
it's kind of like having that, and I know I saw some things on your Instagram, about like Dave Ramsey in general, but like he kind of just lays it out, like being a dick about it, like beans and rice, motherfucker. And the only time I should ever see you in a restaurant is if you're working there. And it's like, Americans just can't get over that. I always see guys going out to the bar, going to have drinks, going out to dinner every other night. I'm like, do you have any idea how much money that is? Going to Starbucks for your $5-6 cup of coffee, like little stupid shit like that can save you so much money. And that's just changing a small aspect of your life.
And I'll tell you what's blown my mind about the wealthy is how frugal they are. And exactly. I always like giving this analogy to people. So the same guy, $2 million, he wants a Ferrari. And of course he can afford it. He can literally go swipe a credit card right now if he wanted to.
Yep.
But he told himself he won't buy it until he can afford to pay for it in 1 month of income.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is $500,000 in 1 month is a huge achievement. The point that I'm making with this is that I don't know a single friend that could afford a Honda Civic with that idea.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think the average is? Like most Americans don't even have like $1,000 of free cash in their savings account now. Like, how are you surviving? I mean, rent's at least 2 to 3 times that nowadays. Never mind mortgages, you know?
Right, and people don't have, to that exact point, they cannot afford a Civic in 1 month's pay, which is okay. I'm not saying that you have to do what that guy does, right? That's not what I'm saying. But if you're going to go buy a car and all you can afford is a Hyundai, you should not go be buying a Raptor.
Yeah,
but people are in a hurry to get in a Raptor into a Mustang. What are you doing?
I don't understand that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And also, like, why do you have to go out and buy a new car? Go out, like, all my cars are like 10 years old, all of them. You know why? Because they work and I just take care of them. You know what I mean? And they're paid off, and I don't have a car payment. You know what I mean?
And to your point, right? For example, I cannot stand used cars because I despise maintenance. Part of me being a Motor T mechanic.
That's actually kind of funny.
Dude, I hate it. I refuse to take my car.
That's why you buy a Toyota, because you never have to do any maintenance on it. You just run that thing to the ground.
It's like, I hate the idea of having to take it to get repaired. I hate it. So I like new cars because I have to deal with a lot less bullshit. But I've made sure that I'm cost effective with the car that I have.
Sure.
So, like, to your point, you got to find what you need to do. You got to put it within your cash flow and be like, okay, all right. I can afford, I should probably get a Hyundai, but I really want a Raptor. Maybe I should just go get in, I don't know, a Tacoma, whatever. And a Tacoma is great, but people end up with these massive trucks, right? They are so
wasting, and you're wasting gas because you're 100% not using that truck for what you think you're using it for.
So it's like, find a way. If we are constantly looking at cutting little bits, it's going to pay off. Right. So the coffee thing is a great one that people always say, don't go buy lattes. Right. And there's pros and cons. If you enjoy it, go do it. But dude, there was a phase in my life that I was going to drink a latte every day on the way to work. That was my thing. $5. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a Breville, $400 Breville. I haven't gone to, I don't have to go get lattes anymore. I'm making my home. But it's like, I gave something up to save some cost over time.
Yeah.
Which is totally worth it. And I encourage everybody, look at the things that you have. And most of us have too much, especially service. I do not know any other group of people that has a garage full of crap that you're never going to use.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the minimalist mindset is such a good thing. I mean, I'm guilty of that myself. I mean, I have equipment and shit from all over the years. And like over the years, I've started to get rid of it and really dwindle down what I don't need. Like it's okay to live a minimalist mindset. You know, you don't need all this stuff. That doesn't exemplify wealth. That exemplifies you just wasting, space in your house, basically.
And I'm not saying anybody should live like a monk, right? Like, enjoy your life. But if you started cutting back little bits, all of a sudden it's going to pay off in the long run, right? And I really encourage that to people. I've seen, I'll tell you something that like blew my mind. I started tracking my macros.
Yeah.
Turns out I needed to eat a lot less. My girlfriend was like, we are saving a ton of money on food. You cannot go back to eating the way you used to. It blew our mind. It blew our minds how much money I was overeating. Right. And it was something simple so that, it's just, I'm not telling anybody to do what I do, but I'm telling you to reassess your expenditure and see if you can save some money. And use this money to take care of yourself in the future, which is the analogy that I give to people is that somebody's got to get screwed over. You get to pick. Either you get screwed over or future you get screwed over. You pick. That's simple.
Yeah, and I think you're right about the food part. Americans eat way too much freaking food. I think anyone who's spent time overseas knows that people live on like a third of what we eat every day at a minimum. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? And actually, that's one of the things I started going like a little bit of self-sustainable farming. Like I have my own chickens. I have eggs. I grow my own vegetables during the spring and the summer and stuff. And it's just like, just eat simple food. Like I don't need any of my eggs, rice, chicken, vegetables. Like I don't need that much. And that's even, and like maybe some protein supplements for working out and stuff. Like You don't need to be eating all this extra food and all this extra stuff all the time. I understand holidays and everything like that, but like I said,
Yeah,
cutting food costs is a really great way to finalize and streamline your budget as well.
100%. And if you eat, let's say somebody just cut back 1% of the junk food that they buy, but then they were able to cut back 2% elsewhere and 3% elsewhere, and then you use the right credit cards to make 3% back. All of a sudden, the savings stack up,
Absolutely.
and they stack up quick. Dude, with my high yield savings account, it hasn't gone down in months. I'm like at the same spot in months because I figured out the flow and the system, and my girlfriend and I are still traveling because we're still making money in our money. And so I teach all these things to people so that they can get to their exceptional life. I don't want them to live my exceptional life. I want them to live their own. And it's totally doable.
So going off this list that you're making about things that people should think about, what do you think of your, I don't know, your top 10, top 5, top 3? What do you think are some of the things that you teach as the financial enabler to these service members or whoever else who wants to get on the good financial path? What are the top things that you address to people to get on the right track with their finances, how to take control of their budget, and how to live a more simple, minimalistic life?
Okay, so normally I do an assessment, right? So I first look at their expenses, and then I ask them, what can you cut back on? Do you really need Hulu, Netflix, Spotify, Paramount, whatever? Maybe cut back. Great. Do you have the American Express? Use that. You'll save some money. So the first thing is looking at your expenses and figure out where you can cut some dollars. Once you do that, big win. If they have debt, I have basically a debt flow chart. Is apply these things. Either you got to start with avalanche or snowball. If you're really in a really bad place, do the Relief Society loans. Can you do a consolidation into a car loan? Can you do a balance transfer? Dude, I use credit cards to pay for my mortgage. I just grab the balance transfer and I transfer it 10 grand at 0%. Piece of cake. But you have to have good credit. So I teach them that. Once we've addressed debt, right? Then I go into saving and investing. The issue is that so many people are focused on paying for debt and they're ignoring the time value of money. This is the
That's
analogy.
actually good. That's a good point that a lot of people don't talk about. Is, you know, because I've heard about the debt snowball from Dave Ramsey, you know, pay off your smallest credit cards first, work your way up. And that's good. But I think one thing he doesn't really talk about a lot is the time value of money. So I'm really glad you're talking about this.
And for that matter, I actually don't like Dave Ramsey as a whole. He's got good concepts, but not as a whole.
Yeah.
So the analogy I give to people with cars is, have you ever heard anybody say, man, I'm just trying to pay for my truck or my car?
Yeah, I have.
Think about what they're saying. I can't wait to go from in debt to broke.
That's a good point. That's
great.
Really
you paid off your truck. You're broke. You do not have assets. So we got to start investing. So when I go to saving and investing, the first thing I do, and I like this methodology, I use 2 high yield savings accounts instead of a checking account. So you got to apply that. Actually, can I show you? Am I able to present something?
I think you can. Yeah, I think you could do share screen.
Oh man, I'm gonna talk about this in a second. This is my money maker. So then we start saving, and then we can look at investing in the future, right? Investing comes down to principles. It's not about day trading. So this is how I see. Let me see. How can I put it here? I'm gonna try to present this because
I think you hit present. Yep.
Oh, share screen. There we go. Don't show this. Share screen and window. Boom. There you go, guys. Can you see that?
I'm gonna put it up here. Add to state. There we go. There you go.
So this is my methodology on what you should be doing with your money. So please read it, Adam, and you answer this question for me if you can.
Sure. Financial maneuver elements: infantry, taxable investments, stocks, ETFs, crypto, metals, special operations, Roth, fires, real estate, medevac, term insurance, medevac with QRF, permanent insurance, logistics, savings accounts, and spending accounts. Would you go to war with just 2 of these? No. I would not go to war with just 2 of those.
No, not even just 4 of those.
You need all of them.
You need all of them, right? So, and I wanted you to read it because that's how it has the impact. So if you're just listening to this, I can send you this slide that I made. But the idea is, if you're able to do this, now your infantry is doing its part. Your soft is doing its part. Your fires is doing its part. And when you have a bad day, your medevacs are bailing you out. And you got to make sure your logistics are sorted out. So I'll tell you, the first thing that I address, Navy Fed and USAA, Front Wave, whatever, they suck. They're terrible for banking.
And explain that, because a lot of service members have USAA or Navy Federal.
Yeah.
Explain why they're terrible.
Well, right now, the interest rates are pretty high. Why would you get 0.25% on your money when you can get 4.6?
Exactly.
Simple. And then people say, it's like, well, that's not enough of a gain. I'd rather invest it. I'm like, you're right. But how much money you're keeping in your checking and savings account? 3 months expenses. What if those 3 months, what's growing at a 4.6%? Could you invest more? Yes. So it starts with that. People are trying to make massive moves and they forget about military strategy. There's strategic, operational, and tactical, right? Those are the three playing fields. Maybe you saw going from Navy Fed, USA, Front Wave into a high yield savings account, which my preferred is SoFi, say SoFi, Ally, M1, Amex, whatever, is a tactical decision. Small wins that then compound and affect to the strategic.
Yeah,
right?
no, for sure.
And I include in the logistics, high yield savings accounts, proper credit card use, building your credit, which allows you, if you're making more money, then you can buy more stocks. You can maybe max out your Roth. You can use your TSP correctly. You can go get permanent insurance because while you're in, you don't need term insurance. You maybe don't, but then when you get out, you have to get it. All these other things start compounding. But the longer that we delay to start doing these things, the worse it gets.
No, I completely agree. Those are some really good points. Is those high yield, savings accounts, checking accounts, things like that. Not just getting a bank account for the sake of having a bank account, but thinking strategically about your money, because pennies add up, man.
Yeah. So what I do, for example, for me, I have 2 high yield savings accounts. I have SoFi, where my direct deposit goes into, and all my bills are paid from there. I have 1 month, 1.5 months income there. Then I have another one, which is I use M1 Finance, growing at a 5% when I have another month and a half income. So this one, the M1 will keep up with my pay raises. The other one constantly fluctuates, but my interest rate payments pay for something. Let's say you make $20 in interest. People are like, "Oh, that doesn't matter." Okay, then don't complain about the price of gas.
Yeah. $20 is $20.
$20 is $20, right? That is a third of a tank in a truck, or sorry, a quarter of a tank. That's a lot of money. So started compounding, right? So I start with that. I got to fix the high yield savings accounts. Got to get them started saving money. Are you an E7? You said?
No, I am not.
Okay.
I am an E5. Long story behind that.
I would love to hear it someday. So if you're an E7 and you are E7 or E9, 3.9, and you have Navy Fed and you have a car loan, you should be in the senior enlisted program. They give a 1% discount. So what I start doing is I start increasing their savings rates, and then I start improving their spending rates, which with good credit cards, you can make money. All of a sudden, you have a ton of money to invest, and we can start building our life of our dreams.
Yeah, and those are just simple life changes you can make that requires zero effort, right?
Easy peasy. Easy peasy.
So what's your next step of advice after that? So solidifying your banking, your checking, looking for those high yield savings accounts, kind of solidifying, 1 to 1.5 a month of expenses split between those accounts. So where do you go from there?
From there, I start looking at taxes. So the proper ratios, it comes down to, so for example, TSP, I am a big fan of just 5%. Get your matching. Allocate it correctly, preferably not in the life cycle funds. So if you're using a life cycle, don't do that. Reach out to me and I'll explain why. Once we put 5% into TSP, now we can start looking in proper ratios of the Roth IRA, life insurance, and a brokerage, in whichever one. Different people require different ratios. At different ages, it'll start tilting more one way. But all three of those increase the odds of savings and taxes, right? So if you max out your $7,000 into your Roth IRA, excellent. Then what? Your brokerage and life insurance. At what ratio is your personal decision. But it comes down to, do you want to pay taxes? No. Okay. Do you think you're going to have a heart attack, stroke, or cancer? Yes. Okay. Do you think that you're going to outlive your investment? Maybe. So now we got to have the proper ratios. And then we got to protect from what is called sequence of return risk,
Okay.
which is when you withdraw money when the market is down. So let's say the stock market drops 20% and you pull 5%. Now you're 25% down. You would actually need 30% increase to recover your money. So think about this. Every single person that had money in the S&P in 2002 did not make their money back at the end of 2003.
Yes.
And if you withdrew, it's even worse. So how do you protect from that? That's where life insurance come in. So the problem is, and this is my gripe, there's a lot of financial advisors that knock on life insurance. There's a lot of life insurance nerds that knock on investments. And I think they're both wrong. I stick to, there's this author I really like. He's a CPA. He's worked a lot with former comptroller general. And it's like, have the right ratios of everything. And the older you get, it has to go one way or another.
Right.
And with that, now you're guaranteed. I'll tell you right now, I'll never again pay taxes on my investments. I'm 39 years old. Never again.
That's awesome.
And that's what I want to get people to do. How do you pay nothing in taxes? Because this is my theory. Again, hot take. I think the IRS code is great.
Yeah. No, if you know how to use it.
You know how to use it, right? They literally, I always think of me with the IRS code like an E3 with uniform rules. I know it better than you. I know how to break the rule.
Well, it's kind of funny because it's like Donald Trump pointed that out. Like, oh, this Donald Trump doesn't pay taxes. Like, yeah, because I know the rules better than you do.
That's it.
You know what I mean? I even have an LLC, right? So like knowing how to use your LLC properly, writing off expenses, using your house as your office, right? Registering your cars as company vehicles. Like, you know what I mean? There's ways to do it.
Dude, and with my business, I'm like, what if people could write off taking leave? Write it off. Use it right. Use the code right. So then now you're offsetting your taxes on you could start a business. You can write off a bunch of stuff. Then you can start getting real estate, which allows you to offset your W-2 income. And then you start putting your money in the right places, in the right ratios, and you'll never again pay taxes. And if you make too much money, then fine, pay the taxes, but do everything in your power. And this is really the hot take. I personally believe that if every single American started using the tax code better, the tax code would have to change and screw us all equally.
I agree.
Right now, there's a disparity. People say, screw the rich, but then the rich affect jobs. Great. Nobody's going to say, screw the poor, even though the poor pay a lot of taxes per their income. So if we all increase our knowledge base and we all started paying less in taxes, the IRS would say, hey, Rich, sorry, we have to fix this. Less tax breaks. But until it has to be an equal thing across the board. It cannot target anybody because there's other reactions in economics, right? But if all of a sudden right now they got rid of the home office exemption, overnight we would have more dollars. But the only way that happens is if we're all using it.
Right.
We show a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And I think most people are just financially illiterate. Right. They, or they don't know. I mean, like I personally, I hire a CPA. Like I do my own taxes. I get the rough cuts of it in there, but then I pay somebody to get all those things that I don't understand, and I read a lot as much as I can because there's nothing wrong with using the law to benefit your own finances. And it just aggravates me that people don't take advantage of that. And they go, oh man, I got to pay like $10,000 in taxes this year. It's like, why? You know what I mean? Like, why are you doing that? And they just go, well, that's just what it is. And I just go, no, that's not what it is. Like, why are you not using the systems that are in place to benefit yourself? I mean, everyone else uses it. All members of Congress use it, but like I said, it's just being financially literate. And like you said, just like you said about archery or anything else, is you have to care about your own finances and be motivated to learn those things in order to benefit from them.
Right. Exactly. And that's why, to that same point, I always use bodybuilding, right? Because kids join the military, all of a sudden they get really into bodybuilding and they figure it out. So what do? They go to a coach. You pay for a coach and then you pay for meal planning. What if you found somebody that could teach you finance?
Yeah.
It gets even better. What if you can find somebody to teach you finance that was an expert and you didn't have to pay them because they found a way to get companies to pay him?
Exactly.
Boom. Now we're winning. Everybody's winning. That's what I created here. And I've started mentoring people to reach more people, but nobody has to pay us because there's ways. I found a way, and now I can help more people.
So what is that way, Jamie? How do people get involved with you? How do they reach out to you? How do they start this process for themselves?
So if they want to reach out, the best thing is Instagram, LinkedIn, actually Instagram is the best way. Is a financial period enabler. I have a YouTube channel also. It's still growing. I haven't put in as much effort into it. And the LinkedIn is under my name, Jaime Gallardo. So look me up, shoot me a DM, and I'm here to help, man. And if I can't help, I know somebody has a resource. Like I'll give you another one that I just love. Go get a trust. I don't need a trust. Great. Then
Yes,
are
you
you
do.
happy with the government taking a lawyer taking 8% of your money? No, you're not. Go get a trust. It's $1,000. Just go do it. You'll be fine. So I connect people to that. I have access to law firms. If you, for example, you have a CPA, if you ever want to talk to a tax strategist, I have those people too. I have all kinds of resources, but I plug them in to make sure that they're aligned and they can help more people.
No, that's awesome, man. I mean, like, heck, I might even reach out to you and start refining the stuff that I don't know. Because like I said, as you get older, like I'm 37, going to be 37 in October, right? Like you're just at this point in your life where you're just like, yeah, I'm okay, but I can be better. You know what I mean?
I totally with you. And this is kind of how I see it. Again, I love analogies. The space shuttle on the way to the moon was out of course for 90% of the trip, but they still hit the moon. So it was constant corrections. So if we say we're good, that is just, we're egotistical.
Right.
So if we get somebody to look at us, look at our money or our problem or our relationship, what is going to happen? You're either going to get a pat in the back or you're going to get an idea that could give you a course correction. Either way is a good thing.
I completely agree. And there's no better time to start than now. Like, why are you going to wait till next week? Why are you going to, you could have started last week. It's like working out, right? The only way you're going to get better at running is start running today. The only way you're going to get better at lifting is start doing those push-ups right now, right? You can't sit around and wait. And man, I would encourage, like, the government is not going to save you, people. Okay. No. Don't rely on them to do anything, especially with the amount of debt that we're racking up with all these crazy ass wars overseas, and all this political nonsense going on. I mean, what did we just waste? $280 million with a floating bridge to Gaza. And that was your tax dollars. They just pissed away doing absolutely nothing. And funny thing about that, I don't think most people know this, but people ask, well, where did that money come from? Oh, it came from the DOD budget. Actually, where that came from was Indo-PACOM. It came from my AOR. So they shut down civil affairs enabling missions in Indo-PACOM and stopped sending people out on Navy ships and stopped sending out people on helicopters to go do this like really important work to go fund something that completely failed catastrophically.
100%.
Right? So don't rely on the government to save your money or your social security check or whatever else it is. Like, take responsibility now, because you don't want to make the same mistakes our parents made, right? Like my parents were a bunch of I mean, I love my parents, but they're a bunch of boomer hippies, right? They're like, oh, it is what it is, man. This is just life. No, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with taking responsibility now, because how are we going to make a better world for our kids if our finances are all screwed up? You know what I mean? Like, you can't do it, right? We don't want to grow up as hard as we had to when we were kids and just living paycheck to paycheck. We don't have to do that. And there's no better time to start becoming more financially solvent than doing that now.
100%. Do you mind if I give a hot take that may boo me here?
No, please go ahead. Get booed.
I'm going to ask you a question, if you mind playing along with this.
Let's go.
Do you believe service members love freedom?
I do.
You do. Do you believe Americans love freedom?
Some of them do.
Okay. I agree. Can you truly be free when you depend on a government for your paycheck and medical care?
Absolutely not.
I hate to say it, guys. If you are so stoked for your pension and you're like, can't wait to get your disability check, you're not free, bro.
Yeah. And then you're just relying on the government. Like, and it's sad, man, because you see a lot of those people who just, and they live off those disability checks, and they're, oh, I had too many jumps, or I fell off a truck or whatever else. I'm going to load off my $2,000 a month from the government. But like, you're not helping yourself, and you're becoming dependent on a broken system as it is. That money is just fiat currency at this point. It's not real.
And all these people that do that, like, if you got a $3,000 check, if you're a veteran right now getting your disability and pension and you have a good job, see that as your opportunity to jumpstart your wealth, but stop depending on it. It's
exactly.
like, just say, and all I'm saying, I'm not saying don't go get it. I'm saying don't depend on it, because
I agree.
And it gives you some freedom that you're like, cool, I'm gonna get this $4,000. I'm gonna invest it. So let's say they get rid of it, just don't depend on it, right? But build your wealth, or give yourself some experiences with your kids. But if you say, I need this money, or, oh man, I'm so glad I have this because I need it, or is the only way I can afford X, you're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and there's exceptions to that. Like, yeah, if you were in an IED attack, both your legs are gone and you can't work and stuff, like, all right, there's
100%.
going to be adjustments to that. But for example, one of my good friends, he has disability, and his disability only goes to his real estate investments, and he owns like 2 houses right now, and he rents
Great.
out one of them, right? And he's my age, right? So he's using that disability money to build wealth. And he still has a job, and he's still contributing to society and not relying on the government, but taking advantage of his time in service. And, that's another thing I felt bad about it in the beginning parts, because I'm going through that process now, because I have a bunch of injuries from jumping out of planes like an idiot. But there's nothing wrong with accepting what's owed to you. Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like some guys, like, am I missing legs and arms? No. But do I have spinal compression? Do my knees not work as great as they do anymore? Yeah, for sure. So you want to know what? I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that money if I can, because it's just extra income. And it's basically free money because of my 14 years of time in service. Right. 100%. So why would I not take advantage of that? So you look for those little things, like you're saving a couple percent by, making a more minimalist lifestyle, but then you're also taking advantage of the money that's owed to you from your time in service. And there's nothing wrong with doing that to build generational wealth.
Nothing wrong. And I encourage everybody to build that generational wealth, right? Be the one that changes that in your life, and find your freedom. I'm all about that. Let's actually live free and not depend.
No, that's great. Jaime, any other closing thoughts you have about your amazing business that you started, your time in service, and anything else you'd like to mention to people before we head out today?
Really easy. Somebody asked me this recently. If you want to build wealth, comes down to a few things. First one's cliche: invest in yourself. So read more, find mentorship, and second thing, start now. If you just read more and you start now, you'll be fine. Doesn't matter what you do. If you just read more and start now, you'll be fine.
No, that's great. And I want to stay in contact with you. I'd like to help get you on some other podcasts and stuff like this. I want to become more financially solvent. I'm not the best guy at this, but it's great. I want to utilize this networking and connections, because building relationships is so important in life. So remember, guys, go out there, go to financial.enabler on Instagram, reach out to Jaime, start your financial solvency now. I'm so glad I had this conversation, because I think it's a conversation that people don't like to have. People don't like to talk about money. Right. Nope. But unfortunately, we live in a society that I'm not trading ammunition and food in a civil war. So I better start taking care of my finances now. Right.
Yeah. I'm about to do a reel about guns, because my hot take is, again, I guess I'm full of hot takes, is that I'm all about guns. Go buy your guns. But there's a point that you need to take care of your future, assuming that the Holocaust doesn't happen.
Do you need 21 different types of assault rifles? Probably not. No. Probably not. Get good on the one platform that you have, maybe in another chambered ammo in case the Chinese invade. But other than that,
I'm all about that. Yeah. Have I think I did it with my buddy. I came up that my max amount of guns is 20. That's only because I said 2 per series of calibers. But dude, I know somebody that has 50 guns, and I was like, what are you gonna do with all those? You're terrible at 60 at all 50 of them.
Yeah, you can't shoot one of them. You never mind 50 of them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, so Jaime, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm glad we're like good friends now. I'm glad Nick got to introduce us. I'm super excited about it. And guys, get out there right now. Go on Instagram, get the financial.enabler, get in contact with Jaime. Start your financial solvency now. I can't encourage that more, especially we can't rely on the government. We can't rely on Social Security, but we can rely on ourselves.
Let's go. Let's go, man. This was awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just make sure that records.